Hey everybody, this is Rich Saunders. I wanted to go through setting up the issue 1 of Sidekick Saga. The one we had up previously, we rearranged the instructions for how to set it up so to make it a little bit easier to get into. So we're going to go through, this is the version that just came out. You Kickstarters are getting these now. So I wanted to go through and show you how to set up issue 1. You should have already played through Scenario 0, which is in the scenario book. That's a simplified version of the game. Issue 1 is where the meat of the game starts. So let's get into that. So as we're doing this, I'll go ahead and show you what's in the game. Right, you should begin this. This is the rule book. We'll be going through the rule book just like you have, and we'll be going in order in the rules, starting on page 5 and going through rules 1 through 20 for setting it up. Okay, there's a picture here, and we will try to match the same picture in our setup. Okay, let's put this off to the side here. This is the scenario book and some other stuff. The only thing we need out of here is issue 1, because this is what we're going to start with. So let's go ahead and put all this to the side and start L'ing this. So step 1 of your setup is read the comic book issue issue 1, because this is where we're starting. This is where the meat of the game is. Remember, this is a legacy game, so as you play through Sidekick Saga, things will change, things will be added, and you need to play through them in order for the story to make sense. Okay, so the first thing you'll encounter is the introduction. Someone will read this aloud, which kind of sets the story up. The next thing will happen is you'll take a look at the components. These come out of the legacy deck, which is here. So this will list the components in here. You'll go through the deck and get to the first orange card, and that's where you stop. So you'll take these cards as your components. This is what the city will look like. This will be referenced in step 8. And then this is what the villain forces will look like, and this will be referenced in like steps 13 and 14. Okay? So this is issue 1. We'll be referring to this, but read the introduction, you'll set it up, and let's start setup. Step 2 is each player chooses a sidekick to play. Now the sidekicks come in this little packet here. These are all cards. These are all what are called jumbo cards, oversized cards. And all the sidekicks you'll know because they have up in the little corner here either secret identity or hero. Let's see, so that's all these cards. These are all the sidekicks. These are create your own sidekicks. If you see these, I would strongly recommend that you don't play with the create your own superheroes until you've really played the game all the way through once. These are the built-in sidekicks. They have 2 sides, the hero and the sidekick side. And we're going to start the game with Blackbird and Amethyst Arrow. Okay? And they start in hero mode. And there's also a bunch of other heroes as well you can play. Let's put those off to the side because we're only playing with those first 2. As part of this step, we also need our power cards. Okay, here's your power cards. The power cards are very distinctive. They are bright orange, and they say power on the side here. Now you'll notice that the powers are not color-coded for the particular heroes. This is on purpose because at some point when you go to create your own hero after a few games or after you've played through, you don't want them, you want the powers to be generic. So that's why all the powers are yellow and not color-coded for the heroes that they are. So let's see, Blackbird has 2 powers. He has Krav Maga and Scientist, and Amethyst Arrow has 2 powers, Gang Expert and Longshot. So we'll put the rest of the powers outside here. Now make sure when you put the powers down that that you have the right side. There's 2 sides. It's either up in the upper left-hand corner here is a 1 or 2. Make sure you use the 1, because when you start the game, all your powers are level 1. As you're going through the game, things will happen which will allow you to increase some of your powers. Okay? As you're first playing the game, maybe you want to keep your powers out so you can see what their abilities are. But as you get into the game pretty quickly, you'll remember what they are. So what I do to save space is put the powers underneath, and you can still see the name of your powers in the little icon which tells you what the powers do. Okay? So that is step 2. Step 3 is to find the soy chart. Your soy chart and your city terror chart are going to be here in your jumbo card. So here we go. This is the soy chart. We'll put this over here. Okay. Now this is called the sidekick. This is called the sidekick of interest chart or the soy chart. And it's double-sided. It looks the same on both sides. What this does. The soy chart is used for disambiguation. A lot of times in the game, the bad guys will be attacking the good guys, and the question is, which good guy will they attack? For example, if both of them are the same distance away, who gets attacked? Well, who's ever the most interesting or highest on this soy chart. So the soy chart is used throughout the game to figure out, hey, given a choice, the equal choice between these two sidekicks, which one does an effect happen to? And that's what the soy chart tells you. Okay. The other thing you'll notice is we have every hero in the game has a soy token. Actually, I have 4 of them. The soy tokens are just correspond to each hero, and you put them on the chart. They never, ever, ever overlap because the whole purpose of this is disambiguation. So each soy token will only go, there'll be exactly 1 soy token in every space. In this case, it's only a 2-player game, so we will have it like that. All right, let's take the City Terror chart. Now, City Terror is also one of the same kind of cards. Here we go, City Terror. The City Terror chart looks like this. The City Terror chart represents how the city is feeling. And there's also a little red token in the box, and you put that on number 1 there. So that, and you know that these go together because there's a little graphic that's continued on both cards. You can see it's just a picture of the city, and the graphic gets continued. Okay. Step 5 is take all the gang cards. Okay, so the gang cards are over here. Here's the gang cards. Gang cards look like this. Remember, there's 2 sides. There's an uncontrolled side and a controlled side. So take these over here and put them next to the City Terror chart. There's 2 reasons these go over here. One is because when gangs are out, City Terror tends to rise. So this is kind of remind you, hey, gangs are really closely related to City Terror. The other thing is they're also close to the Sidekick of Interest chart because the way the Sidekick of Interest changes is when someone defeats a gang or any bad guy in combat, they tend to rocket to the top of the Sidekick soy chart, Sidekick of Interest chart. So whenever you defeat a gang, you put it back here in this and the gang hideout or the discard for the gangs, and that's when it reminds you, oh, since I'm over here, I will also move that token up. Okay, so that's the gangs. Step 6 is to put out the heroic item cards. The heroic item cards are, they look very black like this. There's 4 of them in the base game. This is what you're starting with. As you're going throughout the game, you'll get more, you'll unlock more of these heroic item cards. And they look like this. There's 2 sides, one with a very picture on it showing what it is, and the other side shows hidden, and this is how they all come into play, like so. So there's 4 of them. We'll put them over here, and these will be, the idea throughout the game is we'll find leads, and if we find enough leads to the location, we can take this card and put it into our hand face up and use it, okay? But you have to actually find leads in the game to do that. Okay, 7. Each player takes a turn summary card. The turn summary cards are also the jumbo cards. There are 4 of them because this is a 4-player game. We're playing just right now a 2-player, 1-player game. So each player takes one of these summary cards. The summary card is going to be your best friend in this game. The summary card goes through how the game plays. Now the rulebook is, it's not insubstantial, but once you get into the game, it flows pretty quickly. This kind of reminds you of how the steps flow. And once you sort of get the basic steps down, this should be all you need to play the game. Okay, let's put the rest of them out here, out of the game. Okay, 8, find the locations. Now, this is where we would look in our issue to see what locations are we using in the game. And we'll see right here, these are the locations. There's 9 of them. Actually, the Hero HQ is grayed out because we can't use the Hero HQ until we've unlocked the Force Field Controller. So let's go and get all these cards out. Now the locations come in the base game. They're not part of the Legacy deck. These are the Hero HQ. These have to get unlocked with the Force Field Controller. So we'll go ahead and put these under the Force Field Controller like so to show, hey, you can't actually get to the Hero HQ until you've unlocked the Force Field protecting it. Okay, then the rest of them just go out in the picture. So I think it's like this. The police station's over here. The Uptown, let's see. There should be 8 cards per location. Rincon Labs. I'm going to move these up just a smidge. And as I'm setting them out, you'll notice I'm putting a little bit of space underneath. This is because, let's move these up just a little more. There we go. The reason I'm putting a little space underneath is I want to be able to put tokens underneath there to show that things are in the city. If I put them on top of the deck, it makes it really hard to draw from that deck. Okay, so this is what our city looks like, and this is where the Hero HQ will go once we unlock it. Okay, so that is what issue 1 city locations look like. All right, step 9. Each sidekick finds their home location and puts their sidekick marker there. So we're playing with Amethyst Arrow and Blackbird. So Blackbird, if you look on his sheet, he stops. His home is the uptown, and Amethyst Arrow's home, it says on her sheet, she's downtown. So this is where they go. So notice I'm putting them under. You'll also know that they're color-coded. The main color of Amethyst Arrow is purple. That's the color of that sidebar. The main color of Blackbird is black, and that's the color of his little sidebar there. So you'll notice that's also the location of these, the labels on these as well. So that should be a reminder about where their home locations are. And similarly for all other sidekicks in the game, Shadow Walker has a kind of a gray color. The Commissioner has a blue color. Oh, and so on. Okay. All right, so that's step 9. Step 10 is find and shuffle the lead cards and place them in reach of everyone. All right, so the lead cards look like this. Yay. And I'm going to go ahead and move these over just a smidge, like so. There we go. So these are a little bit closer to this. The lead cards are what you use to get leads, and part of the reason to put them underneath the heroic items is because leads are what you need to get heroic items. That's sort of a reminder as well. Also, right next to the lead deck is going to be the general sidekick discard. Anytime you discard a card in the game, it goes here in the general sidekick discard. It doesn't go back to the deck it came from or anything like that. There are certain points in the game when these cards refresh and come back into the game, but whenever you discard a card to use it, a one-shot or something like that, they always go here in the general sidekick discard. Okay, so that is step 10. Step 11 is each sidekick draws 1 lead card and 3 cards from their home location. So Amethyst will draw 1 lead, Blackbird will draw 1 lead, and then Blackbird will draw 3 uptown cards. Okay. Notice that you can also get leads from the city as well. It's not just something you have to do explicitly. And then he also gets a one-shot over here. And then, whoops, excuse me. And then Amethyst Arrow will draw 3 cards over here. She gets an item, an ongoing card, and another item. Okay. So each player starts the game with 4 cards. So that is step 11. Step 12 is each player takes a Zeonite communicator. The Zeonite communicators are these little tokens look like this. There's 4 of them, 1 for each player. Each player gets 1 at the start of the game. When you use it, you turn it over and notice that it has the Zeonite communicator is gone to show that you've used it. So each player gets 1 of these. These are used for sharing stuff, either information or actual physical cards between players. They're sort of like a desperate last guess. I need something, can you get it to me right away? And that's the idea of the Zeonite communicator. Step 13, set up the villain forces. See your comic book issue. Okay, take a look at your comic book issue. So we've got the introduction, we've got the cards. Those are off to the side over there. The city's set up. Now we need to set up our villain forces. So there's 2 components to the villain forces. The first step here is we just need the cards, and they come from. Okay, so this says the top of deck 1. We read that and it says here's issue 1. And there's a bunch of cards here. And when you get to this card that says end of issue 1, stop, we know that, okay, these are all the cards we need for issue 1. In here, we'll see that there are the villain forces and some bad news, which we'll come back to in here in a second. Okay. So the villain forces look like that. This is the picture they're going to look like, okay? They're going to set up in like a little hierarchy here with this main villain card at the top. So we need to find Mr. Main Villain up here. He's going to go up here. Okay. So let's go ahead and match that picture. So we're going to have, let's see, level 1 cards. I'm trying to get it so everything fits within the frame here. You might probably need to spread this out just a little bit more when you set it up for yourself, because it just kind of, I'm only putting it like this, squishy a little bit so it fits within the frame. Okay. And there are the villain forces. Probably move them up just a smidge. Okay. So that represents the hierarchy. The idea of the villain forces is we're trying to get to the main villain. This is the guy we need to take out to win the scenario. But he has a whole bunch of minions who are loyal to them. And what they do is they protect each other, because that's what minions do. They protect the bad guys. They protect their lieutenants above them. And so you'll notice that's why they're set out in this little hierarchy like this. For example, these two guys in level 1 protect the guy right above them at level 2. So you can't actually even do anything to this level 2 guy until these level 1 guys are defeated. And same with these two protecting this one, these two protecting this one, these two protecting this one, and so on. Okay? So that is step 13, set up the villain forces. Now step 14 is we need to take and deal with the peril tokens. Now the peril tokens are used to show the order that they come out. They're actually a dual purpose. These come out in pairs. You'll notice there's 2 of them. Okay? The idea is the first one shows you the order they come out, and you should always leave them out because sometimes throughout the game things might come back into the villain forces and they might stay a particular position. So you put 2 of these on every single thing, and your comic book issue tells you the order these come out as well. Okay. And like I said, this is described in your comic book issue, so this picture should just be in there. There's going to be an extra 13 later in the game. There's a few more bad guys that come out, so there'll be some 13s, but we don't need these for the moment. Okay, so this is the villain forces, and this should match your picture right there, right? There's the numbers coming out. This tells you the order that the villain forces come out in the game. All right, so step 15 is to reveal the villain forces. Okay, now what that means is we're going to take these villain forces and reveal a couple of them. So at the start of the game, the city is already under assault because there's some villains going to be out. Villains and bad guys going to be out. So we're playing a 2-player game. So in a 2-player game, we get 3 out. If we're playing a 1-player game, which includes 2 characters, we also start with 3. So basically the number of characters plus 1 is the number of guys we reveal. Okay. So number 1, this guy is Lieutenant Jerry. And his place, it says on his card, he comes out at the Warehouse District. So if you look on his card, it'll show you Warehouse District is his home. So we put a 1 here to show this is the location he oversees. Notice he doesn't actually leave the villain force because he has to stay in here to do, basically to protect his upper level minions, okay? Let's reveal number 2. Remember we revealed 3. Right here are the elves. The elves come out at the suburbs down here. And notice the 2 corresponds here. So we can tell at a glance, hey, where are the elves? The elves are here at the suburbs. And Lieutenant Jerry is here at the Warehouse District. And finally, our 3rd villain force revealed is Lieutenant Ben, who's here at the streets. Okay. If you look closely at these guys, you'll notice there's some effects as well, because both Ben and Jerry are in play. Both of them get +1 range, and the elves are going to cause city terror because these crazy elves floating around the city kind of scare people. So that is step 15, where we've revealed a couple of villain forces. Now step 16 is we start a villain forces discard next to the soy chart. So this is more an abstract step. So when we discard and defeat these villain forces, they come over here next to the sidekick of interest chart. Why is that? Because remember, when we defeat a villain in combat, let's say Blackbird defeated one of the bad guys in combat, he would rocket to the top of the chart. Okay? Doesn't matter how many soy tokens are on the chart. Whoever defeats a villain, they immediately rocket to the very top and become the most interesting. So that is why we put the villain forces discard right next to the soy chart to remind ourselves to update the soy chart when we defeat one. Okay. All right. So that's step 16. Step 17, set up the bad news deck. All right. There's a lot of instructions here, and it's mostly to be complete, but the idea is pretty simple. There's going to be 3 acts: morning, afternoon, and night. Okay. And in every act, in almost all games, I think there's 1 where it's not true. In almost every single game, there are 6 bad news in the morning, 6 bad news in the afternoon, and 6 bad news at night. And almost all the time, you take 2 generic bad news from the generic bad news deck, and then you take the specific for your scenario. So from the legacy deck, we're going to get 2 bad news for the morning, and they're indicated by green because they're a little bit easier. There's 2 bad news specific to the scenario for the afternoon, and those are orange. And then finally, kind of like the card, and then finally, the hardest ones, the other specific to the scenario, go to the night, okay? So there should be 2, 2, and 2, and then we take the generic bad cards. And how do we know they're generic? Because they have this little globe icon in the corner, and they don't have anything special on them, so you know these are generic bad news. We know that these are specific bad news because they have a little number 1, because we're doing issue number 1, and you can see the little guy here and the little green thing. So that's how you can distinguish between generic bad news and scenario or issue specific bad news. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll notice some of the bad news are thugs. Thugs will come out. 2, 3, 4. Okay. And so now we have 6 bad news per act. So there's the end of night. Notice that I'm shuffling the bad news together for each night. So there's we know that there's 2 bad news in here for specific to the scenario, and 4 generic ones. Okay, so then what we do, once we have all these decks made up, is we put the morning bad news on top of the afternoon bad news, on top of the nighttime bad news, and then we take these and put them over here. So this is, and then we're going to have the discard, and when the discard comes up, we can see it because it'll be on the board. So that is step 17. It's a bit long, but that's really all it is. You set up 3 acts where each act has exactly 6 bad news. Okay. We take the POW tokens. We're now at step 18 on the next page. Step 18, we put the POW tokens somewhere within reach of everyone. For the moment, we don't need the silica gel. The silica gel stays in the box because it's very important that you don't eat that. Okay. For the moment, we'll do that, and then when we bring the Hero HQ into play, we'll have to move those down a little bit. Okay. The supply lines. Now, we're playing a 2-player game, so the supply lines really doesn't matter. The idea of supply lines is you can share cards with your neighbor in the particular direction the supply lines are showing. So right now, this shows that the supply lines are flowing this way, which means Amethyst Arrow can share with Blackbird, and Blackbird can share with Amethyst Arrow, which, you know, the direction doesn't matter because it's the exact same thing. Amethyst Arrow shares this way, and Blackbird shares this way. But in a 3 or 4 player game, it will make a difference. Okay, so this is the drafting. This regulates the drafting mechanics, sort of like 7 Wonders, and there's a directionality associated with the drafting. But we leave it out here to remind ourselves, hey, we still have a supply lines, and we can still share cards with each other. Okay, and then finally, we're at step 20, where we start the game. So the game is now set up and ready to go. This is issue 1. This will be the meat of the game. And we'll come back on the other side of this and show a little bit about how the game flows with this setup, okay? Thank you very much for your time.